right, we'll call this meeting of the special school board meeting of the Freeman School District to order. First item on the agenda is the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next item on the agenda is roll call.
Emily.
Yes.
David.
Yes.
Doug. Chris.
Yes.
Cody.
Next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Will require a motion to approve the agenda. Do I have a motion?
Motion approved.
Motion by Doug. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Cody. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda, conflict of interest disclosures.
Yeah, if when in executive session we talk about salaries or anything paraprofessional related, I will have to recuse myself.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is public input. Next item on the agenda, consent agenda, will require a motion to approve the following. Actually, I do need to go, I missed that on the consent agenda. I'll have to go back up to conflict of interest disclosures and also recuse myself from voting on, under the consent agenda 1A, that's my brother-in-law, so I will recuse myself from that, voting on that as well. Apologies that I missed that the first time around. All right, consent agenda will require a motion to approve the following: the teaching contract of Keith Anderson, CTE teacher for the 2024-2025 school year, the conditions of employment of Kelly Kruger for the position of assistant track coach, point 7 for the 2024 season, the conditions of employment of Angela Letcher for the position of assistant track coach, point 3 for the 2024 season, and the amended conditions of employment for Haley Schaefer for the remainder of the 2023-2024 school year. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by David. Second?
Second.
Second by Doug. All in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next on the agenda is new business. Number 1, we'll hold a discussion about the funding for the 4-year-old preschool program.
In your packets, I included a letter that Katie put together for families, an informational letter, and she's done most of the legwork for this, so I'll turn it over to her.
Do you have any questions about that? Your benefits. As far as the tuition and fees goes, that was a discussion that I had with Angela, so that's where those came from. We just reached out to some other schools to see what they were doing, and then usually put the numbers together, and that's where she felt comfortable with. But otherwise, everything else, I feel like I have had a discussion with myself and Jody.
What are projected numbers for 4 and 5?
You know, the survey itself is different than what we had sign up, but I feel like the sign up a little bit confusing because it was just kindergarten roundup. So that's kind of why we got this out there on the website to clarify that. I'm hoping now with the new reschedule date, that actually helps get a few more people on. The last time I looked, it was 12 5-year-olds, I think. And I'm not sure about 4-year-olds, because I don't know if my survey was very, it just asked if you had a child younger, because we were really just looking for that 5-year-old number for you guys to determine whether or not you would want to approve it, you know, because it would be funded. So I don't know. Yeah, does it say?
11
For 4-year-olds?
for 4-year-olds.
Okay.
Yeah.
Still have 12 for the 5-year-olds?
Or vice versa, I'm sorry.
Yep, 11 for
11
5,
5-year-olds.
12 for 4.
12
Okay.
4-year-olds.
Good numbers nonetheless, and those are preliminary ultimately until we do the actual formal sign up, and we'll know for sure. Angela, I'll turn it to her for talking about the numbers here, but just a ballpark of why we came up with that number would be that if we get to a certain point, we'd be looking at that we would need more than just a classroom teacher. So then we would be looking at adding a paraprofessional in there as well. But with the rates, the tuition rates, and with the state aid, what we're factoring in is that the room will pay for itself with the state aid, and then with the tuition fees, it'll cover the cost of the teacher and, if needed, the paraprofessional. I'll turn it over to her for some of the numbers.
So you can kind of see the breakdown of what I did for the paraprofessional. If we would hire them at $15, which is, our base pay for a para right now is $14, so it's $1 more. So I figured that by day and then fiscal year and then added in the benefits to give us a grand total of what their package would be. And then broke that down by month and then took that divided by 12 just based off of the survey, and that came out to $227.88.
Hmm.
You know, comparing it to Growing Dreams and Little Blessings though, and we are gonna have them full-time.
Right,
I think
5
we
days
can
a
do
week.
more than 250. I think we should almost do 300. I think that's justified, it's full-time. And if we're not gonna get the grant for supplies, it would help supplement
Offset some of those.
supplies.
Sure.
So that's kind of where my head has been at with that. Obviously it's up to you guys, but I think 300 a month is very justified.
Oh, right, and then you do have reduced tuition as well here as an option.
And, you know, that's another thing, so that's what Ethan School District do, they basically just, if you apply, for free and reduced meals, and you get accepted, they half their tuition, the only thing is, you know, you're eating those costs, so do we wanna offer that, do we not? The $300 might offset that to help pay
Oh,
for some
sure.
of those families, but
Katie, was 250 kind of the average, or is that the top of the other districts that you reached out to?
No, I would say that was about where everybody was, 225, 250. And then remember, along with that money, they also need to pay for their school lunches.
yeah,
Mhm.
so I
you need
included
to
that
add,
in that.
which we all know, I don't know about you guys, but I feel like I'm always making that payment. So that would be something you would have to add to that cost as well as, I mean, when you think about what would it cost to send them here, you need to add that as well in there, so. I think Ethan was 240.
240.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they just went up by like $20 or something,
Mhm.
so, yeah, that's where they were. Some districts offer it for free, some wait to see the numbers and offer it for free some years and not other years. I just think that you start to get into this very upset parent mode when I could send my kid for free, but now I can't send my kid for free, but, you know, you just,
Yeah,
to me, it's just better to almost be consistent.
I agree.
And when you have a good year, you just use that for when you don't,
Right.
than to continue to go back and
Thanks.
forth all of the time based on, I don't know, I just feel like it doesn't sit well with parents sometimes when that happens. And I know Ethan did try that right away too, and they kind of got that backlash also, and so I think they've just been consistent with their, tuition now for that reason, but.
At what, student count would you add the para?
We talked about 15.
Okay.
And then capping it at 23, correct?
24, yeah.
24, okay.
Mhm.
So what's up for discussion tonight would be what the board feels that the tuition rates would be once we go through with the actual registration. That'll be the indicator of whether we need additional support with the para, and then we would bring that back to the board for approval of that paraprofessional position if it's necessary.
Okay. Right, and the cost would just be for the 4-year-olds, the 5-year-olds would
Correct.
not
Yeah.
have to pay.
Mhm.
Right.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. You get
Right,
saved.
yeah, okay, good, I'm just making sure of that. Any thoughts, discussion?
What do you think our exposure is for supplies that we're gonna spend? If we leave the tuition at the 250 base, how much are we gonna spend on top of that?
Good question. I think
Yeah.
Jody and
Mhm.
Jake and I, myself and Katie, we're gonna meet next week to kind of discuss
Look at
what
some-
she would need
Yeah,
and
look at
what
some of
we
the big
have.
ticket items like desks, if we can
Sure.
utilize some of the chairs and tables that we currently have in storage. Would be enough to get through, even if it's maybe not exact, ideal size for the little preschoolers, if it's something that we can just use to progress through the year and get through the year. It is unfortunate that we found out today that we didn't qualify for that grant, but it is what it is, and a lot of work went into applying for it, so we learned a lot in the process at least, but we do have a very good teacher that is gonna be in that room that is excellent at just finding anything that they can to put into for curriculum and for classroom usage, and currently she has in her current classroom has some flexible seating that's been homemade, that has been utilized, so we're pretty fortunate from that standpoint.
I think the 300 per month, I mean, compared to here where they're only, you know, half days and a few days a week, I mean, and so this is really taking the place of a daycare cost for those people. I think it's pretty reasonable, I mean, if I remember correctly, but my kids are all older, but I think it's reasonable to do the 300 per month.
As a cost of the household, if you factor in meals at $250 a month, does that get to approximately 300? If I just do my rough math, it looks like meals break down to $40, $50 a month.
If you do 250 plus the 350 per meal.
Yeah,
Oh, sure, I get what you're saying
just to
now.
keep
That's
like,
like,
you know, the
it's right
total
here, the meals for
household
the
expense
whole
at
school
300
year.
a month versus
Mhm.
300 for tuition plus the additional meals.
Yeah, I
And
like
then-
the 250 idea better.
How viable is it to maintain that 250 so we're not having to constantly adjust the tuition fees?
Give us time to factor that, if there's any other discussion outside of that.
That would, I think the $300 number sounds fine, but as a total household expense. So if we can
Right.
maintain 250 and then the meals come into, you know, $40, $50 a month, then the household expense being at 300, if that's maintainable and viable for the program.
I think
It'd
it
be about
was,
70 a month.
I think
It's
that's what I
350.
figured was like $67, it was
Yeah.
high 60s when I did it in the calculator.
I got, I mean,
Cause I had it by a month.
So it,
350
close-ish
times 4 times
to the
Yeah.
300.
times 5 times 4, for 4 weeks, it's $70.
Mhm.
I personally would lean towards the 250 to try to get that total expense of the household closer to the 300 mark.
Mhm.
Because if you go to 300 and so now it's $400 a month, and that's, becomes a substantial amount of money.
Mhm.
And it still has to be viable, of course. We
I
can't
think
lose money
250
doing it.
is just fine, it was just the supply part, you know, depending on what those expenses are gonna look like, was my thought for bringing it up.
Hmm.
And that we're full-time versus the other
Right.
places.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking for day, like, you have
I
to pay for
pay-
meals at daycare, or else, I mean, you can send your kids a lunch.
Yeah, it's not my hill to die on,
Right.
just where my thoughts were at, that if we can maintain the program and it's viable at 250, I would be a proponent of it. If everyone feels more comfortable at 300, I certainly wouldn't raise an eyebrow to it either.
Maybe we can do a fundraiser for the supplies.
I mean, that's the only reason that I was thinking, was because of supplies.
Well, there may be some other grants out there that we could pursue as well.
Sure.
250, I mean, you can see, if we get those 12, 4-year-olds, we have wiggle room,
Right.
with the 250.
I mean, my thought is just, you know, say you get 15, 16, so you've got, you know, this many 5-year-olds, and then you only have a handful of 4-year-olds.
And
You're not gonna be able to offset the cost of that para, you know, so I guess that's just where my head, but again, so much of this is just attempting to forecast the best we can. We don't know what enrollment's gonna be, I mean, so, you know,
Mhm.
Just doing
Especially
due diligence.
the First year.
right,
So
and
how
first year is
soon
gonna
do
be
we
tough.
have to know the charge?
April 10th is the rescheduled date.
Okay.
Do we have to know the charge, this 250 by then?
It would be very helpful for families to know what the
Exactly.
exact dollar amount's gonna be.
But we won't know till the end of that day how many families there are.
Correct. Or even then, last year for the dial screening for kindergarten, we had 16 kids that registered, and we ended up with way more than that for,
Right.
in our kindergarten class. So that's not exact. There are kids that come in, that don't come in for the actual registration, that end up coming in over the summer months as well, or even during the school year for that matter.
Right, yeah. I mean, we're pretty close to full, there's gonna be probably people that are gonna have to pay daycare before and after school, but that'll be fairly minimal.
We do have a kindergarten teacher in the room too, if you'd like to.
No, I'm fine with either, I agree with Cody, I'm not gonna die on a hill, but for $50, you
No.
know, a month. I think we just do the best we can and then see where we're at,
For next year.
right? As long as, you're comfortable budget-wise, even if we would
Yeah.
only get, if we wouldn't get, say, the full, 12 4-year-olds to offset that cost.
Because with the lunch, it could end up being $370. Is that,
If we go through internet.
Yeah.
it'd be
Yeah.
320
That's
as
a
it
lot.
sits now, so
I like
Yeah.
the 250.
I'm okay with that.
Might encourage a couple more
If we need to,
kids
yes.
into it.
Oh, that's
To get us
true.
over that threshold, if there was,
Yeah. Somebody on there.
if 300's tight and 250 gets them in the door and gets us to that 12 student number we need to get to.
I'd be in favor of doing 250 if we don't do the reduced tuition.
Yeah, that's what I was
That's what I was
thinking
thinking
too.
too, no, just 250 straight across, keep
Yeah.
it simple.
Okay.
Yep, I think that sounds good. Any other discussion or questions before we move on? Right, if there's no further discussion, I will require a motion to approve the tuition rate of $250 per month for the 4-year-old preschool program. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Cody, do I have a second?
second,
Second by Carissa, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda, executive session will require a motion to enter executive session for the purpose of South Dakota Codified Law 1-25-2, parentheses 4, preparing for contract negotiations or negotiating with employees or employer representatives. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Carissa. Doug, you want the second?
That was David.
David,
David, you want the second?
Sure.
All right, second by David. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. In executive session, 7:17 PM.
maybe you should sit on the other side